Hello and welcome back to another episode of Exos Heroes, and today this is going to be a little bit of a shorter video as we just want to kind of give you guys a little bit of advice when it comes to the new banner that's out currently, which is the Reverse World banner. And frankly, if some of you have seen our Stream of Creation tier list, we don't really think very highly of these specific heroes, or I would say these specific Fatecores, because there are definitely some very good heroes in the mix here. However, the biggest issue we have with some of these Fatecore is we don't really think they offer too much in terms of elevating their base hero. So let's take a quick look. Now let's talk about the GOAT Fatecore first. So obviously the two GOAT Fatecores in this group is going to be Garth as well as ulum. And in our opinion, neither of them are that great. Garth is a very strong hero by himself. His base kit is already very good. However, when we're looking at his Fatecore here, it doesn't really add too much. Especially when it comes to his passive. The Barrier of Will passive is something that we don't really like at all. And this is something obviously the entire line of Fatecores is going to have. And it's given that, all these heroes are defenders, are kind of frontline heroes, you want them to be tanky. And the Barrier of Will kind of works as a double-edged sword when it comes to amplify their tankiness, right? It helps them to be a little bit stronger against burst damage, but then it reduces their defensive capability for the few turns afterwards. So, I don't really know, given a lot of these heroes are going to be innately tanky, they're not as prone to the initial burst damage as much as other heroes. And they're also not going to be the targets, right? Like, no one is going to get into a fight and try to burst down your Garth right away or your Mahar, right? So like they're targeting other heroes in your backline. So I really don't think this skill offers too much. And the rest of the Garth's kit hasn't really changed all that much with the Fatecore, especially when we're looking at his A2 is essentially the same, and his A1 now does a little bit less damage initially, but has a dot damage related to it, which is great. So overall, a slight upgrade to his overall kit, and a passive that's really kind of a double-edged sword as we mentioned before. So overall, don't think he got any better with this Fatecore, and hard to justify, spending a lot of resource on this. The same story applies to ulum as well. Ulum also gets the Barrier of Will passive. He, or she in this case, does get the Survival Instinct passive as well, which is something that's unique to her, and in this case, I guess, does bridge some of that drop in tankiness that came with the Barrier of Will in the later few turns a little bit, so makes her just a little bit more tanky, kind of offsets the negative effect of Barrier of Will. But overall, nothing amazing. The rest of her kit is essentially the same, and frankly, you want to use ulum as kind of a partner with Bathory. He's really good at breaking Guardian Stones, really useful in a lot of PvE situations, especially in the later chapters, as well as can go into PvP situations and be that frontline hero that you need in some cases. And his base kit does all of that. His base kit is already good, and frankly, this Fatecore just doesn't add too much at all, and it doesn't change the playstyle, doesn't add a lot of stats, so overall, both GOAT Fatecores were not very highly on, and at this point in time, we can't really recommend it to anyone else. Now, let's look at a few other heroes that we definitely think you should not be pulling. Ulum and Garth, as we mentioned, we can't recommend, but if you do need those heroes to kind of complete your lineup, for example, we don't have Garth after playing this game for 3 months, so we're gonna go summon for Garth at some point. However, as we mentioned, there's gonna be a few Fatecores here that we definitely think no one should be recruiting. And let's start with Barnabas. Well, what can we say about Barnabas? Barnabas' Fatecore is essentially just a skin. It does absolutely nothing to his base kit, it does not make him any better, it changes nothing about him, and at this point, no one should be recruiting Barnabas unless he's the last hero that you need to complete your collection, I guess. That's the only reason I can think of. So, enough said about Barnabas. Next on our list is going to be Valar, and frankly, Valar is one of those heroes that, again, we don't think he brings all that much. This Fatecore definitely does not make him any better. He is more of a damage-focused hero, so there's going to be a little bit of usefulness in the early game for some of us out there. He brings the innate tankiness as a defender, and his kit brings a decent amount of damage early game. Very average hero. Right? He can do a little bit for you in the early game. He can bring a little bit of that innate tankiness and some damage for you, but he doesn't bring a lot of utility, and his usefulness drop off pretty significantly as you approach the later games. Right? Obviously, in the later games, you want your frontline heroes to be the ones who can bring utility through the forms of CC or through the forms of buffs for your team. He does not do any of that. He's more of a damage-focused hero. And in this case, his Fatecore kind of does a little bit more of those, but it just doesn't really help at all. So Valar, another hero that, again, unless you don't have him until now, or you're missing his Fatecore and you have everything else, cannot really recommend anyone to go for him at this point in time. And lastly, we'll round up this list with Lyongen here, the final hero that we think no one should be summoning. And Lyongen is one of those heroes that just doesn't really synergize well with this whole set of passives and everything. Unlike everyone else on this list, he is actually a damage dealer. So again, he doesn't really benefit all that much from the Barrier of Will passive. The rest of his kit doesn't really change all that much. So overall, his base hero is already kind of meh for legendary to begin with. This Fatecore does nothing to enhance that at all, and at this point, definitely don't think it's worth the time. Now, there are a couple of heroes here that we have left out so far, and we think there are some maybe benefits to them, because in terms of return, right, like I think the last two Fatecores we want to talk about here, they actually do something for their base hero, unlike Ulum or Garth. It doesn't necessarily mean they're much better, but I think these two heroes are interesting. So the first one we want to start with is going to be Brook. And obviously we've done a video on Brook recently about his new Fatecore update. Very interesting in terms of the concept. I really like that. I think it changes the base Brook quite a bit, and definitely brings a lot of potential. I see him, or her in this case, to be quite useful in the dragon area, right? The Holy Dragon Grounds. If you can bring her alongside of some sort of a buff or healing over time hero, then there's potential for her to be very, very useful, especially on the weekend days, since she does have the Dragon Hunter passive. Outside of that, you need a special team to make her work, especially in PvP areas. Is there potential for it? Yes. I think at a lower end of the PvP ladder, or lower to mid tier, I would say, there's definitely potential that you can bring a team with Brook or FC Brook as your primary damage dealer. At the higher end of the spectrum when it comes to PvP, I don't think she stacks up that well, and traditional damage dealer that we've always seen like Rira, Bathory are probably going to outshine her for sure in those cases. But if you guys want to try something new, if you guys want to do something more interesting, go with FC Brook. I think she is by far the most unique Fatecore in this group. And lastly, let's talk about FC Mahar a little bit as well. We really do like FC Mahar because I think Mahar's base kit is relatively average. It's kind of the basic defender type of kit, right? A little bit of CC, a little bit of damage, relatively tanky, nothing special. His Fatecore definitely makes him kind of a more true defender, right? It brings a lot more CC to him in the form of a provoke being added to his A1. And his A1 is very strong because it's only 1 mana cost. The damage is low, but it does damage to all enemies and provokes them for 3 turns, which is great. So you can use this skill very consistently and provoking the other team on a consistent basis. And it grants him damage reflect for 12 turns. So actually he can passively do a decent amount of damage just by reflecting some of the incoming hits that he takes. And you don't have to worry about him dying that much as well, because Mahar and Ulum are 2 of the highest defense hero in the game by quite a bit. So they are innately tanky, and that synergizes really well with his provoke as well. And he also can provoke through his passive, just because he has the block 3 passive, and that's, in our opinion, one of the better ones. And that's on top of the fact that he also has the Head Dragon Knight passive, which makes him a good candidate to bring on the machine days. And he also brings a defense debuff of 37% of his own defense for 8 turns to a single target with his A2. So again, His defense is super high, 37%, that can easily take out 50 to 60% of a back row hero's defense, so it's really nice. I think from a pure defender perspective, Mahar's Fatecore definitely puts him into that upper echelon level. Now, is this a super great Fatecore? No, but again, similar to FC Brook, we do think this Fatecore at least adds something to the base kit, right? At least makes the base hero better. And it's interesting, it's unique, and if you guys want to do something with these heroes, I think Mahar and Brook are the ones that you should consider. But with all that being said so far, one thing we do want to point out is there's always an opportunity cost when it comes to summoning heroes, right? We want to make this very clear. If we're following the trend of the last couple of weeks, we know there's probably going to be another string of creation related banner sometimes next week. Most likely FC Rodley's banner, so that means you will get a chance to go for FC Rodley and more importantly to go for FC Annie. So that could be right around the corner, and that means it's something we need to consider, right? Do we want to drop our resources now? And frankly, given this line of Fatecore, I would say no. I would say wait for next week. And also with the new developers notes, we know there's going to be a new line of Fatecores coming out, the Synergy line, right? And with that, obviously there's going to be more things for us to summon, so at this point, unless you really want one of these heroes, I don't think anyone should be going for this banner right now. But the good news is we are going for it, right? So this weekend, as we always do on Saturdays, we do Summoning Saturday and we summon for 10-11 pulls. And since we're still missing Garth, I think this week we're gonna go for FC Garth. Therefore, if you don't want to summon this week, but you kind of have that itch, hey, guess what? You guys can come and watch us fail at summoning FC Garth. And hopefully that'll help you quench some of that thirst for recruiting. But that's gonna be all for it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And as we mentioned, we'll be doing the summoning this weekend. Hopefully we'll see you there. And we'll have a bunch of other videos coming out as well. So stay tuned and we'll see you in the next episode very soon. Bye bye.